So a few days ago, I created a video on Swarm framework, which is made by OpenAI, which is a framework that allows you to create agents quickly and easily using OpenAI API keys and everything internally, which is awesome because a lot of people liked it and it's getting a lot of traction. Now, as you may know, if you haven't watched the video, you can go ahead and check out somewhere here or just search on my YouTube channel. Swarm was made by OpenAI. So internally, it uses OpenAI API keys. So you have to have OpenAI API keys. That way you're able to connect or to use OpenAI large language models. But now in this video, I'm going to show you how to use Ollama, which means now you're going to be able to use different large language models from Ollama, which are free. That way you don't have to pay for OpenAI fees, API fees, requests, and all that great stuff. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. So I found two links that essentially explain how to get this to work. If you go to Ollama blog tool support, and this is what you'll have. So this is from July 25th, 2024. OpenAI compatibility. Ollama's OpenAI compatible endpoint also now supports tools making it possible to switch to using Llama 3.1 and other models. So this is the example that they have here. So essentially, we can change the base URL to point to our local host 11434/v1. So this is what you get when you're running Ollama locally. Okay, and then for the OpenAI key, even though we're using OpenAI everything, you actually pass something like this Ollama. So internally, what will happen is instead of using the OpenAI API, it's going to use our local API, which is Ollama, right? In this case, we're running Llama 3.1, 3.2, or whichever other model that you might be running locally. But I also found a better explanation on how this works. So this is from February 8th, 2024. Okay, so and they tell you exactly how this works. You can see here we can actually curl. Always remember you must have, of course, Ollama installed and running for this to work. So you can actually test things out and curl and get to what you need to get. In this case, get to the chat completions API. So they tell us about the setup, Ollama poll, Llama 2. Okay, in this case, we're going to do 3.2 because that's what we have so far, but you can use any other large language model. And then all you do here is just curl to see if it works. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and make a few changes because now I have to 3.2 on a separate window here. All right, so once I have that, again, make sure that you have things running. So I'm going to open my terminal here. I'm going to paste. So I'm going to curl this so you can see this is localhost and everything. I changed this to Llama 3.2. So make sure you have that running locally. So, okay, so we have messages here. You're a helpful assistant for the system, and the role says hello. Okay, user is going to just pass in to say hello. Let's go ahead. What will happen? See? So I hit enter. Now it should go and invoke our local large language model, and then we should get some information. So you can see the model is Llama 3.2, system, all that. But most importantly, you can see that we have the content that says, how can I assist you today? Go back and do some changes here. Instead of hello, let's say, tell me a short story in haiku form. Let's go to enter. And there you go. So you can see content here. It was really fast because it's all local. Very cool. All right, so we have here snowflake, softly, fall, blah, blah, blah. All good. So now, obviously, this is not Swarm, but this is just to show you that it's possible to use local large language model through Ollama to run things. Let me go ahead and show you here at the bottom here, OpenAI Python library. So this is how you would do it. So you would obviously import or get the OpenAI dependency. In this case, we say OpenAI and we pass the base URL. It has to be this, okay? Because this is the local base URL where Ollama is serving whichever model that you're running locally. And here it says this is required, but not used, but we still have to pass this API key and pass Ollama. And then you just do something like this and it should work. Now, before we go there, I'm going to show you how all of this works. If you go to Swarm code base here, the beauty of code and understanding how things work is that we can actually go internally and see what's really happening and see how we can change things. If we go back to Swarm, and we should see this core.py here. Click that. Okay, so there's a lot of things here. But most importantly, you can see that in this Swarm class here, which is what is instantiated to create the actual Swarm framework we can use to create agents, you will notice that we are in this initializer here. We have, it says here, if not client, and instantiate an OpenAI object. So this is what happens whenever we say Swarm and we don't instantiate anything or we don't pass anything. It's going to go ahead and pass its own client, which in default is going to be OpenAI. It makes sense. That's the reason why we have to have OpenAI API key, so that internally it knows how to pass all that information. Okay, but also you can see here it says self that client is equal to client. So if we have a client that we're passing along, then it's going to override it. That's the reason why we are able to do this. That's the reason why we have to override this OpenAI object here, pass the base URL, which is going to be this, and then we pass the API key to say, no, we don't want to use the default OpenAI. We want to use our own Ollama models. That is the cool thing about that. Okay, now let's go ahead and show you real quick in code how to get started. Okay, in code here, I'm going to create a new file called swarmollama.py. So you're going to have access to all this code anyway. And what I will do here, first of all, we need to make sure that we do something, which is we need to bring in a dependency, which is going to be OpenAI. So pip install OpenAI. Now, I should probably already have that, but in your case, you want to do that. And of course, make sure that you have your virtual environment running as well. Okay, so now that we have that, what are we going to do? Well, let's take a look. So first, I have the code already, so not to bore you, I'm going to import a few things here. Import OpenAI, because we need that, as you saw previously in the example. And of course, we're getting the Swarm and agent. So I can take all of this and put right here. Okay, so now I'm creating this new client, pass the base URL, which is this one, and API key is Ollama. That's it. So now I have a client which is going to override, as I showed you, the OpenAI client to say, let's use our own. Now, next we're going to instantiate Swarm. So usually, as you saw, we would say something like this, just Swarm. If you do that, that means internally it's going to go ahead and you can see we can pass a client. But if you just do that, internally it's going to assume that you want to use OpenAI, which is not what we want. Okay, so that's the reason why we're passing this client, which is this one here. All right, so now we have a new client that we can use. Very good. So next, what I can do here is I can just get a few things. Now, I'm going to create some agents here, but before I'm going to create this transfer to agent B. Now, if this makes no sense, I have a video where I go through the beginning or the fundamentals of Swarm, how to create agents and everything. But essentially, this is what we're going to be calling soon to pass the button per se to a different agent. Okay, let's create our first agent here. Okay, so I'm going straight to actually creating an agent or using agents. So we have agent A. Let's go ahead and get agent B so you can see. And we have agent B. Now, what do you see being different here? Well, the first thing we see that we need to pass the model whenever we create an agent. If you hover over already, you can see that the agent takes in a name, which we passed along. The model, if you don't pass anything, is going to assume that you want GPT-4o. Because it assumes that you are using OpenAI models. But now we need to override to say we want to see Llama 3.2 as the model, to use Llama 3.2 as a model. Now, you can use any other model that you may have running locally from Ollama. Doesn't matter. I'm just using this because that's what I have, okay? And then you can pass some instructions. Very simple. You are a helpful agent. And here's the function that we call transfer to agent B. So we're saying call this, which will return agent B, which is this guy here. Any agent that we pass along or we need to pass the model. It's very, very important. Okay, and we have some instructions. Let's go ahead and run a quick demo here. So I have the code already, and now I have this run demo loop. So I'm actually creating my own run demo loop. We could have imported from Swarm, but it's okay. So we pass the agent that needs to drive everything. It's going to be agent A. Context variables, we don't need to worry about that. just none, stream false, debug false, and everything. Okay, and so inside here I have this messages array or list, and I'm setting up the agent, and of course I have while loop here to allow us to so that we can actually talk to these agents and pass messages back and forth. That's all we're doing. Now the important thing here is that we have client. Now keep in mind this client here, just how Python works, is going to be this client here, our own client using our own Llama 3.2 model. All right, so we have this, which is really good. And so we're saying stream is going to be stream. Now what's happening here, this stream is going to be false, right? And debug is going to be false. We're just passing whatever we're passing along. That's all. Now make sure that also for agent, to run it, we need to pass the first agent, which is our agent here. Okay, and so this is running through, and then we have results. I could go ahead and print those out, and then I'm adding all those responses into the messages list here. Very good. So now I have agent. Then I'm going to go ahead and say run demo loop, maybe a little bit larger, run demo loop, and see how it works. Let's go ahead and run this. If all goes well, let's say we can just go ahead and run from here. All right, there we go. So now we have starting Ollama Swarm CLI. So let's see, write something nice, something like this. Okay, so nothing is showing here. The reason being is because I forgot to actually print things out. Let me just go ahead and print this out real quick. I think that's probably best. I'm going to clear that. Okay, let's go ahead and run again. All right, there we go. So now I can say, tell me something nice. Okay, there we go. So you can see, tell me something nice. I'm so glad you asked. Here's something nice for you. You're a unique and special individual with your own set of talents, blah, blah, blah. It's very good. I feel good about this. So very good. But most importantly, you have to realize we are not depending, or we're not using OpenAI models. We're using something that is local, which is Llama 3.2. This is awesome because now we don't have to rely on using OpenAI models because we have to pay. So in some cases we have to do it because that's just how things are. But now all of this is local and free. And we're using Swarm, which was made by OpenAI. Obviously, they want you to use their models. It makes sense. But now we're able to use our own models running locally. All of that by customizing, taking the power that we get from when we create a Swarm, when we instantiate a Swarm, to pass our own client, which we're overriding the base URL to point to our URL, and the API key, and we just pass Ollama here, which is required, but it's never used. Now that I have the basics, let's go ahead. I'm going to put together a very similar to what I had in previous video, where it was this newsletter generator, but it's going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to create another application here, or file. Let's call this news swarm ollama.py, something totally new. I'm going to get started. So the idea here is that we're going to use a search engine per se called DuckDuckGo, and we're going to pass, of course, a query that then will pass that through all these different agents that will go and do the search, and then writing some very simple summarization of those news related to that topic. So something very simple so you can see some sort of a real world thing that you can build. Again, the most important thing here is that we're going to be using Llama 3.2 locally using Swarm, which is really awesome. Let's go ahead and get all of the imports that we need. Now notice that you will need DuckDuckGo search. So what we will need to do is you'll have to say pip install duckduck, let's see, DuckDuckGo-search. It's very important so that you have that dependency. So once you have that, we have a few other imports here, agents and everything, so nothing really new. And then I'm going to you will see we're going to use this to show the time, the current date, so we can contextualize the news. The model we're going to be using in a static variable there, and as you saw before, we're going to do the same thing and pass in our Ollama client, make sure that we pass the local host and everything. So same thing what we did before, nothing new. And then let's go ahead and initialize, in this case, our client, okay, our Swarm I should say. Okay, so this is what will allow us to create the agents and everything. So we have our client here, Swarm, and we pass our Llama client, which is this here, to override so we can use our Llama 3.2. Okay, so now I have some helper methods here. These are very simple. Essentially, the first one here, process and print streaming response. I got this actually from OpenAI Swarm code base. So nothing really out of this world. It just does exactly what it says here, okay? To print things and make sure that if there are tools are being called, which we're not going to be talking about, then that is handled here. Okay, and the next one is pretty print message. It just prints things nicely in the console. Now let's go ahead and get the actual function, right, that we're going to be using to call to get results. So in this case here, get news articles. We pass in the topic. We have some printouts there, and then we instantiate the DuckDuckGo here. Okay, and so we go ahead and get results by calling the DuckDuckGo and pass the topic, and of course we want also to pass the current date and the max results just 5, and make sure that we put all together into this news results, join everything. We want the title, get URL, description, and the body, and return the actual results. It's going to be the actual news from this search using DuckDuckGo search. Now let's go create some agents here. So we have our first agent. So this is going to be an assistant agent, news assistant agent. We pass in some instructions. Now this is where you would make this a little bit better if you needed to. It says you provide the latest new articles to give topic using DuckDuckGo search. That's great. And we pass the functions, get news article. So this is going to know to call this function here, right? Pass the topic and everything. It does everything. And don't forget, of course, to pass the model we're going to be using, which is Llama 3.2. Very good. Now we're going to also create another agent here. This is the editor agent. So same thing, instructions, I should say. Rewrite and give me a news article ready for publishing. Each news story is in separate section, and we can add more instructions if we want to. Don't forget model as well. Okay, so once we have that, it's just showtime. Okay, so first here, I can just create a simple function called run news workflow, passing the topic. And this is going to, of course, get our client and call the run. We need to pass the agent and, of course, messages so that the agent knows what to do. Okay, so in this case, get me the news about topic and current date. That's very simple. And then we get those news from response and from this endpoint. We pass this news to the editor for final review. So we call, again, client.run, editor, and pass the news that we've received here. Okay, so then we can just say run news. Instead of that, let's something say AI and LLMs, something like this. Okay, and let's see what will happen. Let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so look and see, running news, agent workflow, running DuckDuckGo search for AI and LLMs, and it's working in the back end to get all of that, run different agents and writing things and orchestrating everything. Okay, so it ran, but I think I did not actually return anything because this returns right. So let me put that res, and we're going to go ahead and print res. All right, let's do that again. This time it's going to do the same thing, but now we should be able to see something. All right, there you have it. So we have running news, blah, 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 did everything. And then we have Article 1, AI Labs, create a new model, capable of simulating human reasoning. Article 2, 3, very good. And there you go. So it actually works. Very simple, but the beauty here again is that we're using local large language model. We bypassed OpenAI's language model. Very, very cool. Now, if we want to make this a little bit more exciting, we could actually just run in a loop. What that means is we can run demo loop, can run our own. So in this case here, the same thing we did before. We have this run demo loop. We pass the context variables, which we don't care about. And we have agents and everything, set everything up here. And this is where we're running. So we pass the current agent, which will know what to do, and all of this. So I'm not going to go over all of this because we've done this before. It's just we're putting everything together into something that is actually fun. All right, so we're streaming here. If stream is true, we're going to be streaming, else we're just going to have this print, pretty print message there. And here is important, move to the next agent automatically if applicable. So we are pushing, making sure that the agent knows, okay, if it needs to do X, Y, and Z to pass the baton to the next agent. So that's what's happening here. All right, very good. Let's go ahead and quickly run this again. I could just run from here. Okay, so now you can see we can ask Ollama, news on Ollama, like that. Okay, so now it's going to go ahead. Very good. So you can see now it says running DuckDuckGo, get articles. So this is News AI, News Assistant. And figure out the topic is Ollama. Here's a summary of the latest news on Ollama. Say, can you edit? Let's see what's going to happen. Because we can actually speak or send messages to the main agent to see what will happen. Okay, let's see. Okay, there we go. Editor assistant. Here are the written news articles in separate sections. Very good. Ollama AI framework patches critical flaws, and very, very, very nice. So I hope this was helpful because you can see the things that you can do now instead of being clocked into OpenAI realm, which is okay. But now we can use Ollama and local large language models of our choosing to help us do this. So this is something that you could use locally to create something that is actually useful for news feed and many, many other things. So that's how you use Swarm, all these agents. But then instead of using the default OpenAI models, you can use your own models. Now, if you want to learn more about how to build solutions, how to build real world solutions using AI and coding skills, I have a new community called the AI Guild where you will have access to more than just this. You'll have access to me and other members, serious people who want to use AI to build real world tools and solutions that actually solve problems. So there's a lot that you can find in the community, but if you're serious about diving deep into AI and actually build real world solutions and having codes and templates, and also will have weekly calls where you can ask questions, we can collaborate. It's just a beautiful place. If you're interested in that, I'll leave the link in the description and I would love to have you. All right. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. Until next time, be well.